Hey to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, ChiroThin, Chiro Moguls, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Health USA, The Goodman Factor, Chiropractic Rocks, Winner's Edge, Chiro Tax Pro, and Digital Hustle. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 192 of the Chiro Hustle Podcast. I'm your co-host Luke Millette, and here's your host Jim Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Grant Dennis, and if you want to hear more about what chiropractic is and where chiropractic is going, stay tuned. So we have Dr. Grant Dennis with us here. This is episode, let's see, 192. And this is the Chiro Hustle Podcast. And before we jump into your chiropractic story, we want to send a warm welcome to you for being on our show today.
Appreciate you having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be on with you guys in the midst of a hurricane.
Yeah, it's interesting. You guys are getting flooded with a hurricane inland, and we're being threatened by wildfires out here in Colorado.
Hey man, it's 2020. What else can it bring us? What else can we adapt? That's what we're about, right? Adaptability. Let's just adapt this thing and keep moving.
That's why we need to bring the message of chiropractic to more people, because people are under these not only different layers of stressors, but they're looking for answers. And I know that we're going to jump into discussion today, but you just came out with a book that made Amazon bestseller in one day. So I know we'll talk more about that, but let's jump into this episode and talk, as we always do with our Chiro Hustle interviews, and we ask people to tell us their Chiro story and what influenced you become a chiropractor and a little bit about where you are today.
Yeah, man. Well, first off, I appreciate you guys hosting this. You know, I love the theme of Chiro Hustle because there's two things I know in life. One is Chiro and the second is hustle. So this is my jam right here. But, you know, my chiropractic story is unique. You know, I didn't grow up in a chiropractic family. I grew up in a very medically minded family. You know, when I got sick as a kid, we went to the medical doctor. You know, we medicated everything. We used pill potions and lotions. And so my whole journey through life, like I didn't actually, you know, see a chiropractor at all in my early childhood. And so, you know, one of the things that was super apparent to me though, as a youngster, like very early on, was really two things. I knew, you know, I was a collegiate athlete. I played baseball in college. I was an infielder. I was a receiver in high school. I always knew that I wanted to use my hands to help people. And I always knew that I wanted to use my gifts to make the world a better place. That's one thing I knew for certain in my life and was my purpose and my why. And so as I went into high school, I always thought, okay, I'll be a medical doctor. I'm medically minded. I'll be a surgeon. I'll use my hands to help save lives and sort of, you know, use my gifts in that fashion. And then when I went up to college and I was a student athlete, I just remember being indoctrinated into anatomy and physiology early in the role of the nerve system. And you know, as I began to sort of progress through academics, I knew that I was able to pick A, B, C, or D better than most people, which gets you sort of through chiropractic school to the end stage to get that piece of paper that we all go to chiropractic school for. It's sort of the means to an end, if you will. And so, you know, I actually was going to medical school and was you know, enrolled, was going to go, and I just kept having this little knock on my shoulder that was like, I don't actually think this is what you're supposed to be doing. So I actually backed out. My parents thought I was nuts. I think just until here recently in the last 3 or 4 years, they've finally now gotten it that I made the right decision. But they were like, are you sure? Is this the right role? I actually went up to Park University on a whim in Dallas where I graduated from. Kind of ashamed of that actually nowadays. But I actually got indoctrinated with Dr. Gene Giggleman early on, who was the anatomy professor in like trimester 1. You get Gene Giggleman, who innovated the animal chiropractic world. He's a chiropractic legend in that he was a veterinarian, but also loved chiropractic, and he merged that to form animal chiropractic. And I remember on my tour, I was walking around with him and he was like, Grant, you do know that we get to change lives every single day with our hands without the use of drugs or surgery. He's like, I get to do that every single day, and that's what we will teach you on this campus to do. And I was like, dude, I'm in. Like, that's exactly what I want to do. So I enrolled in chiropractic college. You know, along the way, came across some amazing mentors who sort of led me down the journey as I was kind of bouncing around on my journey like most chiropractors do early on until I really found my calling and found my niche. And, you know, I discovered the type of work that I get to do now. I opened up a clinic right out of school. Just had piss and vinegar and passion and hustle. And 5 years in now, man, and everything's peachy. I get to take care of people, and honestly, I can't even believe I get to get paid to do what I do. And so that's sort of my chiropractic journey in a nutshell. If I was just to kind of condense that down, that's what it would be.
That's really cool. And I know, just because I've gotten to know you over the past couple of years, it's been really cool to see you develop into who you are today. And I know that you are playing a larger role with the IFCO. You're playing a larger role within the upper specific group that you're a part of, upper cervical specific group that you're a part of. Do you maybe want to share with us a little bit about these groups that you are working with right now?
Yeah, sure. So I get the opportunity and the honor to serve as the Vice President of the International Federation of Chiropractors and Organizations, IFCO in short. Join the IFCO if you haven't. I know there's a lot of turmoil within like the ICA, what's going on with the ICA and the IFCO. And like I've gotten questions here recently, like what exactly are the two? But in a nutshell, the IFCO stands for really one thing, and that's protecting the chiropractor's right to analyze, locate, and adjust vertebral subluxation, like 100% promoting and preserving that right for you. So if you want to promote and sort of support your, ability to do that, then your membership goes to help us do that. You need resource to help protect that through politics and different initiatives, to help protect your right politically to do that. Because whether you like it or not, if you don't want to be in politics, you're either, you either have a seat at the table or you're on the menu as far as politics are concerned. And so as far as I'm concerned, I didn't ever envision myself being in politics, but it's just such a big passion of mine. One of the things I was talking to someone about, I was like, I just feel like in chiropractic right now, there's so many people who are waiting on someone else to do it. They're waiting on someone else to politically take initiative to garner their right to practice the way that they want to practice. They're waiting on someone else to produce research. And I've just always been one of those, like, instead of just continuing to propagate that, like, let me just help be part of the solution and not the problem. Right. And so I get to do that. It's a super humbling and super awesome honor just from all the people and the history of the IFCO. And then I also serve as the Chief Operating Officer of the Specific Chiropractic Centers. We have several 15 clinics around the U.S. right now that practice exclusively upper cervical specific care in a cash environment, doing super great things around the world. And for us, our big vision is just to create access to quality upper cervical care to people all over the world. And so within that, there's the art of the specific, which is where we get to teach and train. We're actually going to be this weekend in Indianapolis working with some docs and students on the actual knee, chest, upper cervical work and the actual training of docs and students in that. And so there's quite a few docs who practice the art of the specific that aren't in the specific chiropractic centers, but the art of the specific is the actual technique used within all the specific chiropractic centers. And so, I think for us, it's just perpetuating the work, creating good, principally sound, philosophically sound, scientifically sound docs that are able to go out and produce an art form in the knee chest work that allows them to see the sickest of the sick, like BJ cultivated the profession on, command a nice fee to do that, take in resources, make their clinic super successful so that they can take those funds and those resources and put them back into the profession. I mean, that's the way that it was designed is, for you to help a lot of people become extremely successful doing it and then take your resource to then propagate and perpetuate the work there forward, put it into research, put it into politics, put it into things that support your ability to continue to do that. Right. And so for us, that's just kind of what we're about. That's what our jam is. And, I think just working for a common vision, a common mission, and really the premise to take chiropractic to its rightful place in healthcare, which is we should be the first stop for people with chronic health conditions. And I just think right now with where we are in society, there's never been a better time for us to be leveraged and positioned to put ourselves in a place of preeminence, because I just think we're in a place where people are constantly questioning healthcare right now. They're really questioning everything. They're questioning, I don't know who to believe. I don't know what to do. I don't know who to go see. I can not have symptoms and be sick. I mean, literally everything is playing right into preeminently positioning us to be the leaders in healthcare. And I just wish that others around us would, especially within the profession would, and I think most do. I think it's just a lot get confused on what are the steps we need to take in order to do that. And so I just have always thought that instead of being a chief, why not be an Indian? And instead of being an Indian, why not be a chief? We can be both. And I think we need everyone playing their part and their role on the team of chiropractors to take this thing to a preeminent position in healthcare.
So Can you tell us some of your favorite quotes or mantras that keep you fired up every day and keep you Chiro hustling?
It seems like you have one over your shoulder.
Yeah. So this one right here is one of my favorites. It's in my clinics. The first thing people see, it's actually a Bible verse. It says, "They shall lay hands on the sick and they shall get well." It's in Mark. And, so when people walk in, my office and my ideal client, my target market I look to serve, they resonate super well with that because up to this point in their life, they've probably never actually experienced that. Someone to lay their hands, give them a chiropractic adjustment, and let their body do what it was designed to do all along. And so they know exactly, that's the funnest part for me. What gets me jazzed is when my patients come in the door and get their life back and they get well and they get, a life without migraines and all these types of things. They know what did it. They know that it was an adjustment to the upper cervical spine. They know that it was leaving it when it doesn't need to be adjusted. They know that we're checking for that and adjusting it when necessary. So there's no confusion. There's no I wonder if it was the traction unit, or if I wonder if it was the CBD products I just got on that, and I'm not knocking those things. It's just for me, very I want people to know when they leave my office and they achieve a health outcome that there was one thing that did that. And it was the removal of vertebral subluxation. And, if I were to just say, one thing that really gets me fired up that also sort of is my drive for wanting to get the message out there for chiropractors, that I feel like overall we just need to be better in distinguishing what we are versus what we are not. And we are not bone setters. We don't knock down the high spots. We don't stick unstuck joints. We locate vertebral subluxation and we remove it. And we also know when it is not present and does not need to be removed. It's not present. The PT down the road can't do that. The osteopractor down the road can't do that. The manipulative medicine osteopathic doctor cannot do that. They cannot locate the nerve interference and remove it and keep it removed. It's what makes us unique and distinct. And it's what gets me up every morning to go help train doctors to be better and understand how to do that. Because my big concern and what gets me fired up and allows me to hustle more is I feel like if in 5 to 10 years we don't get a hold of that concept and send more doctors out there with the knowledge and the ability to do that, our profession will be lost because it'll get intertwined into physical therapy, into osteopractic, into osteopathy, because inherently from an outside patient perspective, and even as you're writing law, if you're not distinguishing what it is that you do that makes you unique and distinct, you therefore can't be separate. You can't stand out. You can't be looked at in your community differently. And therefore to the common person, it would all look the same, right? And so I just think instead of us moving towards the musculoskeletal component and the musculoskeletal aspect of things, we need to stay over in the neural aspect of things. One of the things that fires me up a lot is I hear docs say, and I see this across platforms all over the place, and it's just like it makes my hair stand. It pisses me off so bad. It's like they say the vertebral subluxation is outdated. It's a pseudoscientific myth. It doesn't actually occur. And I'm like, listen, if you understood that more medical doctors are pumping out literature that validates what we do every single day more than we are, nobody knows how to apply it. I mean, we have tools like thermography and heart rate variability and all these objective indicators of nervous system. They term it neuropathophysiology. Last time I checked, that's a nervous system problem. That's a nervous system issue. Like that stuff's in literature. It's just how do you apply it to the chiropractic art? And so, at the Art of the Specific, we teach thermography, how to know based on literature and based on research when to know when neuropathophysiology is present or not. We call it subluxation. They call it neuropathophysiology. I mean, I get to take care of a lot of medical doctors, people who are highly educated, and they get that. They're like, okay, so I've even had medical doctors say, okay, so this isn't chiropractic. I'm like, no, this is chiropractic. This is 100% chiropractic the way it was intended and founded. I don't know what your assumption of it was. Like, they think we stick unstuck joints. And so they come in like, oh, so you're scanning and detecting when it's present and leaving it alone when it's not. And that's what we like to teach, because again, I just think in 5 to 10, 15 years, as we progress through, in order for chiropractic to continue to thrive and be at its rightful place at the head of the table, that has to start occurring more in more and more offices, because research is available to us, technology is available to us, and quite frankly, a lot more than BJ had at his disposal, the developer of our profession. Over time, the philosophy was always solid, but we didn't often have the science to validate the philosophy. I'm of the opinion that our science is catching up to our philosophy every single day, more and more and more. And if anything else, the science outweighs the philosophy at this point. And so why we're not using it, I'm not sure, but it's encouraging to go like to places this weekend and be with 20 to 30 docs and students who want to be better and want to learn more, and see more people and have an impact. But more importantly, really sort of perpetuate the work further instead of contributing to our own demise. That's what I don't want to see happen. But I don't know about quotes or anything like that, but that's sort of where my piss and vinegar comes from at this present moment.
It's very encouraging, as you say, to hear your positioning. I've been in the profession now 11 years, and Luke and I just checked our stats. And I always tell people I'm not a mathlete, but I'm really into numbers. And when you do high volume of anything, you start to learn things. And that's what it's done for me specifically. And I know you've been using the word hustle, so I use some word specific. Just to banter with you a bit, I've picked up on is chiropractic is about the adjustment. And there's a whole lot that goes into it that people don't really understand. But when people get adjusted, they seem to feel better. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's something that the public needs to understand more. And, I've also heard that it's not about feeling better, it's about healing better. And there's a really cool phraseology that you probably heard before, that holding is healing. And that when the body doesn't need to be adjusted, we are in a state of healing. And I really believe that when people can understand that, then they understand what vertebral subluxation really is. Because it sounds like this big, scientific term and this big medical term, but really when we talk to people about health, they just want outcome, like you said. And when you can measure that and show them scientifically through instrumentation and utilize the tools that are available to us, I think it was Steve Jobs that said, you have the tools, now go use them. And I really think that as we develop a relationship with communication and advancing it, like you said, and being ever present and towing the line and not being, angry, but being vigilant, and not being on defense or offense, but being, in the conversation. And one of my buddies, Roberto Monaco, always says that if we don't tell people a story about what we do, someone else will make up one about us. And I really think that that's very valid in this conversation we're having right here. And if we don't tell people what we do, then people will assume that what chiropractors do is theirs. And they're going to start ascribing themselves the languaging around chiropractic and removing things that they don't like. And all of a sudden it's a new profession. And it's not what chiropractors have stood on for 125 years as their science, philosophy, and art. It becomes a borrowed from what they want. They look into the kit and they're like, oh, well, we're going to take this part for anatomy. We're going to take this part for the osteopathy, and we're going to call it this. And you're like, no, but you don't get it. That's chiropractic. You guys are just trying to package it differently. And that's what's wrong about what's happening right now is what I see. And that's why what you're doing with IFCO is so important, because there needs to be some type of a watchdog system that says, you know what? I support what the reality is in chiropractic is it is a science, a philosophy, art. And like you said, it is a give, love, serve, and it is a training system. And there are different techniques that are involved with getting people feeling better through outcome of the chiropractic adjustment. But all the other things that might be borrowing from the toolkit of chiropractic, in my positioning, chiropractic is very specific, it's unique, and it's non-obvious. And if we don't tell these types of stories daily, then somebody else is going to come in and start telling the chiropractic story and saying, we own everything that chiropractic is, but we're not going to call it chiropractic anymore.
You made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, ChiroThin, Chiro Moguls, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Health USA, The Goodman Factor, Chiropractic Rocks, Winner's Edge, Chiro Tax Pro, and Digital Hustle. Let's hustle.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, you said it. BJ said from the beginning, chiropractic specific or it's nothing. And, I think we're in a time where people aren't able to disagree on anything and it still be civil. and have constructive, and some people word them uncomfortable conversations, right? But I'm going to disagree with you on one thing, and that's okay. You said the chiropractic's about the adjustment. And I'm going to disagree just a little bit, because I actually think it's about the check. And I think until we start selling the check for the need for the adjustment, BJ used to say the check is what I charge for and the adjustment's extra. And so I think that that's truly, if you were to say and ask any lay person, a lot of times that people ask me, their patients, like, hey, I noticed this guy down the road opened up that he's an osteopractor. Like, what's the difference between an osteopractor and a chiropractor? And he's a PT who took like 8 weekend seminars and now can manipulate grade 4 mobilization. He can high velocity, low amplitude thrust, right? And so if I were a patient and I were to go in and experience that, my question always is, if they were to go in to walk in his office and experience that, and then walk over into another office right next to him that's a chiropractor and experience something similar, in his mind, there's no distinction. And truly the distinction is the check. This guy over here checks for the need and knows inherently, because of his objective indicators, when it's not necessary. This guy over here gives me the mobilization every single time, right? The difference is the analysis and the location and the wherewithal scientifically to know when one's not needed, when the holding process is occurring, when the healing process is occurring. And it's just like in dentistry, they check for the cavity. You get paid, and you pay and you get charged for the check for the cavity, not the filling of the cavity. That's sometimes extra, right? So not disagreeing. I'm just saying I disagree on that one thing, and that's okay. And we're in a time where I wish more people were able to do that, honestly, because it's constructive for the profession. But the adjustment, I will agree with you, is that with that extra special something is what allows people to get their lives back. But I just wish more understood that people want to walk into your office and be told, Mary, you don't need an adjustment today. The one I gave you last week's holding, your body's healing. And that's the difference. Like with 100% certainty that my indicators are removed, I know you're holding that adjustment. I know you're healing. And it's not about the symptoms. It's about the function. And we're in a time right now where people get that. Like, hey, Mary, could you walk in here right now and have no symptoms and have COVID? Yeah, well, there's also the chance that you could walk in here and have symptoms and not need an adjustment, just as much as you not have symptoms and need an adjustment. Like it's not one and the same or dependent on the other. And I think people are in a mindset right now. They get that. They're willing to pay for a diagnostic check. People go to the COVID clinic, and what do they hope for when they go and they jab that freaking javelin up in their nose into their brain? Like, what are they hoping that thing says? No COVID. That's what they're hoping for. So people are in a mindset right now where they want to walk in our office and be told you don't need an adjustment. The one I gave you last week's holding, which, by the way, if we talk about how detrimental vertebral subluxation is on society, and we truly believe that, would we not want it to be present as little as possible? Right? So
you're taking us on a really awesome path. And, after I've done 800 of these interviews over the past 3 years, I've come to realize that me being a lay person and not a chiropractor, I can definitely talk the tick.
Yep.
But it takes somebody like yourself that has the education behind yourself to, sometimes correct the things that even I think I know. We know until somebody informs us that what we know needs to be reframed. And I think that that's what we need to do right now for the position of chiropractic in our culture. Like you're talking about sticking a javelin up your nose to check and see if you got something wrong with you. Well, we need to check and see if people's nervous systems are functioning right now, because the nervous system, and I'm not a doctor, but I really think that it has a direct influence on the immune system. And if people are getting checked for their subluxation, those things have a direct influence on the nervous system, which you would think downstream that this would be a conversation about immunity. And when a person has a healthier spine, that controls all organisms in their body, which is the organ system, which is organized. And if there's a subluxation that's disorganized, then there's disease. And I really believe that conversation that you just had with me and how I'm kind of tossing it back to you, it just makes sense that everybody should want to at least get that check.
100%. And if you're confused and you're one of those chiropractors out there listening that is of the belief that the neuroimmune system is not connected and that the removal of vertebral subluxation does not correlate to some sort of immunity, there's a course and there's a seminar in October that the Foundation for Vertebral Subluxation is putting on at Sherman College of Chiropractic. If you are of the belief that there is no connection between the adjustment and the removal of vertebral subluxation and immunity, you need to do yourself to go to that conference. And I tell you this, if you go to that conference and you sit through that and you hear that research and then you want to leave and make that claim, then we can have that conversation. But if you have not gone and listened to the research that's made available to us by oftentimes medical doctors, sadly, that correlate the two, and you don't know how to apply that, that's on you. And that's sort of like the conversation I have with a lot of chiropractors. Have you read the chiropractic textbook? No, I haven't. Well, then we can't even have a conversation on what chiropractic is or isn't, because that would be like a lawyer walking into the court of law and never have read the Constitution, had never have read the Bill of Rights. Then we don't have a grounds to stand on with which to look at things through the lens of what chiropractic is versus what it is not, based on those who came before us and founded it and clearly defined in the green books what it is and what it isn't.
And even better, it's like a whole group of dentists getting together and saying, "Nope, cavities don't exist anymore. Those things are antiquated. We don't want to use that in our language anymore because obviously cavities aren't a problem. Like you can't have tooth decay anymore. Like nobody has tooth decay anymore. It's non-evidence. Like there's no evidence of tooth decay, and it doesn't matter how many x-rays we take that you'll never see tooth decay anymore. So we're just going to go ahead and cut that out. And we're not going to talk about cavity or tooth decay in our profession anymore. And, hey, we're just going to put braces on everybody."
No double-blind clinical controlled trials. No, that seems to just be the only standard, that anyone looks through. And it's, still trying to figure out how to, sham manipulate, which is why the whole premise is backwards. But I mean, again, that's sort of the thing, and that's kind of where we are. And it's just my life's goal and my legacy that I want to leave is that I know one day I'm not going to be able to take care of patients anymore. And I just hope that I've done everything I can do to help students and docs be better, understand more. And that includes me. BJ on his deathbed was like, "I'm still a student. I've brought it to this far. Now it's time for everyone else to take it and move it past me," which is why I take issue a lot of times with chiropractors who say, I do it like BJ did. And I'm like, dude, if BJ were here today, he would slap you in the face, because if you have not progressed anything since 1960, he would be like, "Bro, what do you mean you do it like I do? You've got all this technology, all this research. Like, what do you mean you do it like I do?" I feel like he would be like, that's a slap in my face. So I would hope that as we progress, and I'm in the upper cervical world just because that's where my passion is, and that's where my education and research and everything and technique and my art of chiropractic is. But I mean, that's where BJ's was. He kind of came full circle. He started off early on in his life doing upper cervical. He went to full spine, and then he came full circle back to upper cervical. But most people don't know what that journey looked like and why he did that. Most people don't know that history. And so if you understood why he did that, it was because he was deductively trying to figure out, how can I locate the specific, which is what he uses over and over and over again in green books. I'm trying to locate the specific. I want to reproduce the specific. What he was saying is, I'm trying to find the specific cause, when located and removed, is the underlying cause for all symptomatology, all pathology, and all issues occurring as disease within the human body. So in other words, he was saying, we should be able to reproduce this among practitioner to practitioner. And if I can teach a practitioner this particular analysis, we should come up with the same results, the same findings, and the same patient outcomes. Because BJ knew too, I'm going to die. What happens when this profession gets passed on? Can they reproduce the same thing? Basically what he was saying is, can we produce inter-examiner reliability? Like, can I run a scan and get the same conclusion the person who comes in behind me runs a scan and gets the same conclusion? If we have a higher level of reliability, that patient can be served by them or me, right? Whether I'm there or not, which is what's another issue with chiropractic, I feel like, is it's so ego-driven. It's all about this one person. And what this one person doesn't realize is that when you pass, if it's all about you, the profession dies, right? And so that's why I just have a real big passion for helping students. I help support students as much as I can in our program that we teach, getting them to seminars, getting them to Berkshires, getting them to summer camp, getting them to places that all over the place that's in chiropractic, because I understand that it's in the students that truly, it's easy to say like, the children are the youth of our generation in the world, but truly in chiropractic, it's the students that are going to come out and when we die, going to take the profession over for me. And I'm 31 and I don't plan on going anywhere for a while. I plan on for adjusting until my hands fall off, until I'm 101, hopefully. Right. But that's just because I love what I do. But there has to be some level of accountability among chiropractors that if you have a particular skill set, pass it on to the students, teach the other docs who want to learn. there's a lot of docs that don't want to learn, and that's fine. It's sort of like a patient who comes in your office and doesn't want care. I'm not going to change your worldview. If you want to take drugs, you're going to take drugs. But you're going to have a life experience at some point that shifts your worldview. It's sort of like religion. I'm not going to, never once have I seen a Facebook post move somebody from Democrat to Republican. Never once have I seen it move them from allopathic to holistic. It's just not going to happen. It's the human experience that changes people. And so there's docs out there, I feel like, that want to be better, that want access to this information that is available to us to further validate subluxation. I talk to them all the time. It's some of my favorite people to talk to, but there's others out there that are so stuck in the ego-driven way of, I've done it this way forever, so I'm not changing anything. And, they just don't realize that that's great. But when you die, your clinic will change names and move on to somebody else, and there will be no legacy left. There will be no student that comes in that learned the work from you that is wanting to advance that further, so that the person that comes in behind then. And so really, I think it just comes back to the vision. It comes back to, what do you want to be remembered for? And what do you want your particular vision and legacy to be left? And for me, I just hope that I've been able to make somebody better, influence as many students as I possibly can, and leave the profession. They say 10% utilization. Let's be honest, it's below that. I would love to see a day where it's at 40, 50% and that we're preeminent, and we've never been positioned better. I just think we need to be smarter with some of the moves and the positioning things we do and the way that we leverage what we do, like writing books and like going out and spreading the message on higher and higher platforms. For a long time, it's been one spine at a time, right? And I just feel like we're at a time now with social media. There's people out there who hold a higher level of influence that we can leverage their level of influence. There's people outside the profession, that's one of the things like with BDC Summer Camp we're trying to leverage is people outside the profession that have a high level of influence. What does it mean for Eric Thomas to stand up on stage somewhere and say, my secret weapon is chiropractic? But not chiropractic as you guys know it. I mean the detection, analysis, correction of vertebral subluxation. That influence it's huge, right? And so I just think we need to sort of get outside the box, train students better, leverage our influence a little bit better to perpetuate the profession forward and put ourselves at a preeminent position, which I just don't feel like currently we're in.
Well, before we jump into the next topic, I just want to touch on one thing. And one of those connectors there is mentorship and passing the torch. And I think that's going to be highly critical for the discussion you just shared with us is to make sure that chiropractors that are becoming maybe in their 30 years of practice or 40 years of practice, they are courting the young and saying, hey, I want to be a mentor and I want to pass on the wisdom and I want to make you better for the future and not make money off of your hands and back, but I want to pass something on to you that you're going to be able to have a better career with. And I think that's what really wins chiropractic in the future is more unity and more, not so much coaching, but mentorship. And I think that's what it's really going to take to stabilize the beginning with the end. And I just think that, with a holistic system like that, everybody wins. I think Grant froze.
Maybe the hurricane got him.
So if you guys are still watching this and Grant froze, he'll probably jump back in with us if it allows him to, but he's right in the eye of a hurricane that's going over Little Rock, Arkansas. So at this point, I don't know if he'll jump back in, but Luke and I will kind of hold space here for a moment to see if he's able to rejoin us. If not, I think that we had a pretty dynamic episode so far with Dr. Grant Dennis. He did write a book called A Life Without Migraines. And I know that Luke here with Chiro Hustle, he used to really have an issue with migraines. And as soon as he started getting chiropractic care, I can't speak for him, but maybe share your story.
Okay. So up until about, pretty much until I started getting adjusted, I would have daily migraines pretty much since I was about 8 years old. So it's pretty cool that chiropractic was able to help me with that. I'm hoping someday it'll give me hearing in my left ear again, but not yet. And this book looks really cool.
Yeah, so the book got delivered, and Luke and I have like our little countertop office space. And I got it from the mail, and I opened it up and took it out of the wrapper, and I set it down, and Luke comes in. He's like, "Hey, is this for me?" I go, "Yeah, why not?" But no, I just got it in the mail, and I was like, "Hey, we're going to be interviewing Dr. Grant Dennis on Thursday, which is right now, and Hurricane whatever is going through Little Rock, so I'm sure that wiped out his connection with us." Mm-hmm. But yeah, we're really our next question for him. We're going to be talking about marketing and what he does to promote his practice. And then, as the typical conversation with Chiro Hustle, we were going to be asking him about what his hobbies are and what media he likes to pay attention to. And, just kind of ask him what books he's been reading. It sounds like he's pretty deep into the green books.
Or what books he's writing.
But at this point, I don't know if Grant's going to be joining us back.
I don't think so.
So we're going to go ahead and close out. This is episode 192 of the Chiro Hustle Podcast. And you're just one story away. Keep hustling. And we will see you guys on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.